Alyssa Merton, and I'm with the Oceana College Access Network, and welcome to our Paying for College Information Series. We have Kristi Hiltz from West Shore Community College joining us tonight. Thanks for being here, Kristi.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, a couple housekeeping items. If you're new to Zoom, you can enter into the chat at the bottom of your screen. If you move your mouse, there is an option to chat. We ask that you only use that to ask a question, and then so that we can catch your question to make sure to answer in the end. So I will be sharing a PowerPoint screen in just a couple of minutes. We are recording this session, just so you know. And if you have a private question or something that you want to talk to someone about afterwards, there will be an opportunity to do that as well. So I'm sure I'm forgetting to tell you something, but without further ado, we'll go ahead and I'll share my screen and Kristi will share with us. Tonight we're talking about the financial aid process. So hopefully getting you started with understanding what the whole process is to financial aid. And then the rest of the week, we have 3 more sessions. Tomorrow is FAFSA 101 and the FSA ID. So that will lead you through the entirety and in-depth of how to complete a FAFSA. And the following night, we have Scholarships 101. So they will be talking to you all about scholarships and how to apply and where to find scholarships that you or your child are eligible for. And the last night will be the focusing on student loans. So focusing on federal loans as well as where to find private loans as well and what all the details are on loans. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and share my screen here, and Kristi will get going on our presentation for tonight.
Well, welcome everybody. This is an exciting time in your students' life. They're getting prepared to get ready for college, and obviously many of you, which you've probably figured out fast, is that there's a lot of expense to college. So finding different resources out there that can assist you is always beneficial. I'm going to try to go over some of the different types of financial aid and different things to keep in mind as you're maybe applying for either federal or state aid or local scholarships. And then at the end, if there's any questions that you have, just let us know. We'll do our best to answer those for you. So next, these are the items that we're going to go over today. We're going to talk about our college timeline. We're going to talk about eligibility for financial aid, your estimated family contribution, which is your EFC. We're going to talk about that cost of attendance. And we're going to also talk about verification, which is the federal government's way of making sure that the information you provide is correct, and what documents you need to complete verification. The financial aid awards and an award letter and the purpose of that, the types of federal and state funding and scholarships, and then that Q&A session at the end. Next. So this is kind of the timeline that we go over with students. You want anywhere from now until May 1st, you want to start thinking about where you want to attend college. And when you complete that FAFSA, you want to include those colleges on it. Anywhere from October 1st is when the 21-22 FAFSA opened up. And then there is a first eligibility date that is February 28th of 2021. And that's for state of Michigan scholarships. That's your priority deadline. So you want to be filing that FAFSA before the March 1st date of 2021. Anywhere from now until June 1st of 2021, you want to be thinking about looking for scholarships that can assist you. whether it be the scholarships at the institution that you'll be attending, or it would be scholarships that are available within our communities. So after you file your FAFSA, anywhere from when that FAFSA is received to the institution to approximately November, that is when you will be receiving financial aid award letters. If you're looking at attending West Shore, we are receiving in 21-22 FAFSAs right now. We are not actually processing them, though. We won't start processing them until probably January, February of next year, and we'll start sending award letters after that. So every institution's a little bit different, but depending on when you file it, you should start looking for some communication from your school that you're planning to attend, probably late January, anywhere to March. That's when we start reaching out to students. When you find out your financial aid award, then anywhere from May of 2021 next year to September, before that fall semester starts, you want to be looking at, did my financial aid cover my cost for my semester, or do I need to seek additional resources to help me pay for my schooling? And that's where you want to inquire at your institution about if they have payment plans available, or if you're interested in a federal student loan. And then the other important piece to remember is that every year that you attend college and you want to be considered for federal and or state aid, you need to file your FAFSA. So you go out each year to do that. Next. I'm going to touch just a little bit on the data security and the cybersecurity. Encourage students, whatever institution that you do decide to attend, to be accessing your school email that they provide for you. A lot of times in the financial aid world, that communication that we can share with students is considered sensitive information, and we can only exchange that information to a secure email. Your school email will be a secure email. So getting in the habit of accessing your school email and checking it is a good habit. Utilizing student portals that they might have, lots of information that we try to share at West Shore within the student portal, anywhere from financial aid to records, to your account, your transcript. So when you decide which institution you're going to attend, it's helpful to just take some time and look around on their website that they provide for you and what information you can find. Just touch on the FERPA a little bit, which is releasing information to certain people. You obviously, as a college student, if you're coming in, you're just graduating from high school, you are most likely 18 or you're turning 18, and so you're considered an adult. You kind of fall into this challenging age because as an 18-year-old, you're an adult, but yet you may still require or ask for assistance from adults that support you in your life. And so to be able to exchange your information with them, we need what's called a third-party release of information. So that's something you'll want to look for at the school you decide to attend to. Makes it a little bit easier for parents to call and us to share information about your financials, about your school record and whatnot. And then lastly, they're making sure that you're keeping your passwords up to date and not sharing them with others. Next. This is what the release of information at West Shore looks like. Students can request it online and complete it and send it back to our records department online. Next. The FAFSA, which stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid, That is the website that all things related to student aid you will find there, whether it be federal student loans or filing your FAFSA. I think it was last year they compiled a lot of different websites into this one. So a lot of information there. If you have some time, spend some time kind of maneuvering around and see what's available for you there. We are at West Shore, we're happy to assist any student with their FAFSA, even if you're not going to be attending West Shore. So go ahead and just give us a call and we'll try to either walk you through it over the phone, which can be a little bit more challenging, or we are still offering students and their parents the option of making an appointment, and they can come into our office and complete the FAFSA there. Next. The due dates that you want to keep in mind, filing your FAFSA before June 30th of 2022. So you do have quite a bit of time if you don't decide that you're going to be a student in the fall of 2021. You can still file it November 2021, getting ready for that winter 2022 semester. But to meet that deadline for state aid, it has to be that March 1st of 2021. And then this is just a reminder that the completion event that we will be assisting with will be during the week of November 16th. And remembering that your 21-22 FAFSA uses 2019 income data. So seems a little confusing, but they use the prior year to determine your eligibility. Next.
Can I jump in and share just a second here?
Yes.
I just want to make sure that people understand that it's best to file your FAFSA as soon as possible. Because she's going to talk just a little bit later, and maybe you were going to mention this, but your FAFSA also kicks off any institution aid or college aid. So at some of the colleges, they just use your FAFSA. So they have pots of money at some of the colleges. And once those monies are gone, they're gone. So it's best to file your FAFSA as soon as possible, as soon as you can get it in. But March 1 is the Michigan deadline.
Yeah. Thank you. Just kind of a review as to who is eligible to receive federal and state financial aid. U.S. citizen, or usually a permanent resident, a high school graduate, a GED holder, or if you were homeschooled. Certificate of completion is only acceptable for state of Michigan aid eligibility. Eligible degree and a certificate program. So when you attend your institution, they're going to want you to declare a program of study, and that program of study needs to be financial aid eligible. This can create some difficulty with students who maybe don't have all of their direction figured out, and so they kind of choose something and yet they want to dabble in a couple different areas. You just want to make sure that you're registering for classes that are within your program of study. If they're not, we encourage students to seek assistance with an academic advisor to make sure that your classes that you're enrolling for will be covered by financial aid. We always have to reach out to students if they're enrolled in courses that aren't in their program. So just to kind of give you the heads up on that area. A valid social security number is required, and if you're a male, you need to have registered for the selective service. The FAFSA does provide an opportunity that they will register for you, or if you're not 18 when you're completing that FAFSA, they will sign you up when you do turn 18. We encourage students to use that option. There is still a mail-in option, obviously with items in the postal mail right now being delayed. That is one area that can get delayed as well. So make sure if you are registering for selective service, you're using an electronic option. That is the quickest way. The last piece to eligibility is that satisfactory academic progress. We call it SAP. So you might hear that. It's basically has two components to it. You need to make sure that each semester you're attending college, that you're earning at least a 2-point GPA, and that you are completing at least 67% of the courses that you're attempting. If you do not meet one of those or both of those, you will go to what we call a warning status. And if you continue to not meet it the second semester, then you lose that eligibility for financial aid. You can make an appeal. It's just a little bit more of a process, okay? So basically that SAP is put into place so that when you're receiving federal or state aid, you're working diligently at earning that degree. Next. The expected family contribution, oftentimes it's referred to as EFC. There will be an estimated amount that FAFSA provides for you as far as your EFC when you actually submit the FAFSA. It is not verified until the college receives your FAFSA and checks your eligibility. But oftentimes you'll get that estimated EFC. This is the amount your family is expected to contribute towards your education, but it's not an actual amount that you have to provide money for, okay? It's calculated using the data from the FAFSA, and it's run through a federal formula. So they're taking a lot of the information that they're asking questions from you about, and they're putting it into a federal formula to determine what your EFC is and what financial aid you're eligible for. Now, if you get this information and your circumstances have changed, because obviously it's using 2019 tax information, there's been a lot going on in 2020, especially for people financially, and your income has decreased, or there's no longer jobs that you had that you were employed with in 2019, contacting your financial aid office at the school you attend is what's going to be helpful for you. There is a little bit more of a process where they ask you to submit some additional paperwork, and then another determination is made as far as if some adjustments to what you qualify for can be made. So just so you know about that. Next. How much financial aid you can get. Generally, it depends on your financial need. Your financial need is determined by your expected family contribution, and is from those FAFSA results. And then they also look at the cost of attendance. So the cost of attendance comes from that institution that you're attending. Your cost of attendance is made up of the tuition and the fees, the room and the board, an estimation for books that you may need, an estimation for personal miscellaneous items that you need as a student, especially at West Shore, your transportation piece, because obviously it's a rural community college and most people are driving quite a distance to get to West Shore. So those types of items are all put into a budget, and they also look at that estimated family contribution to determine what your financial aid need is. Your total financial aid cannot exceed that cost of attendance. So whatever budget is estimated for you, the financial aid you receive cannot exceed that cost of attendance outside of the Pell Grant and or scholarship funding that you may qualify for. Can be a tricky area to understanding some of that financial aid, and we just encourage students, if you're still kind of stuck as to what that EFC is and the cost of attendance and how it all plays into what you are eligible to receive, to call your financial aid office. Next. So now what? So after you submit your FAFSA, you have about 1 to 3 business days, we usually say, that it takes for the Department of Education to process it. They will be sending you an email, and then the school or institution that you attend goes out to their mailbox and they pick up any of the FAFSAs that have their name on it. So once we pick up the FAFSAs, we're looking first to see if there's a verification need. Across the board, 30% of students are selected for verification. It's not that you did anything wrong on your FAFSA. It's just that the federal government wants to take a look at these FAFSAs and make sure that the questions that were answered and the information that was provided is correct. So what they will ask of you, the student, and the student's family is share the information that you provided as far as your wages, and share the information as far as who's a part of your household, those types of documents. If you have not completed some of those processes like selective service, those are items that are going to be requested. Trying to think if there's other ones. And this is where students and families can get stuck in the process. If you are selected for verification, the institution reaches out to you and requests documents. And a lot of times students think, I submitted my FAFSA, they told me I was aid eligible, why do I have to submit documents? And this is the whole purpose, is to actually receive that financial aid you're eligible for, you have to complete the verification process. If that process is not complete, if those documents aren't submitted, your aid will not ever be finalized and you won't ever receive it. And sometimes that's difficult for students and families to understand. So not necessarily that you did anything wrong, it's just the way the government is verifying information. And I think I listed on there, do not procrastinate. Financial aid offices will get very busy right before the start of a semester. And that can be anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks before the start of the semester. Right now, we're in that period of time where we are ramping up for the winter start in January. Sounds like a long time off, but it takes quite a while for our office to actually review information and finalize aid. So for the most part, there's still pretty manual processes. People's eyes are looking over documents, and we just encourage people, as soon as you're aware that you have something to submit, work at getting it to our office. Okay, next.
Can I just jump in one time here too, just based on experience? So when this process, if you get chosen for verification, say your child applied to 5 different colleges, you will receive requests for those verification documents from all 5 of the colleges that your student listed on the FAFSA. So now at that point, if you're chosen for verification, that's when it's a really good time to narrow down the college choices and then only submit the verification documents to the colleges that are still kind of on the list, if that makes sense. Hopefully you don't get chosen for verification, but if you do, you definitely can call the college as well and they can help walk you right through it, but it can be a confusing time for students and families.
Yes, no, that's an excellent point to make, because that will confuse students. And they often say, I submitted it to West Shore, why do I have to submit it to U of M? Well, each school needs to review those documents. So yeah, that's a good point. You really need to start narrowing down where you want to go. It's a lot of information you might have to share. Yeah. Okay, so the order of financial aid awarding. So it starts with grants first, which is your federal and your state aid. It works its way down to scholarships, whether it be an institutional scholarship that, like, let's say you attend West Shore, we have West Shore Community College scholarships we award, or it may be an external organization, such as a community foundation, or the Mason County Promise, those types of, we call them outside scholarships. Work study, that is another opportunity that you can earn wages just like you would with a job, but they are employment opportunities on the campus usually that you attend. We encourage students to indicate within their FAFSA that they may be interested in this. It doesn't lock you into anything, and it can allow for a work experience that is usually quite flexible because they'll work around student schedules. And any of that wage that you receive from your work study position is, they don't require you to pay taxes on. So it can be kind of an incentive. Student loans, whether it be federal subsidized or unsubsidized, just a little tidbit about that. The subsidized is where the federal government is assisting you with your interest while you're attending school. And the unsubsidized is you are paying the interest on those loan dollars while you are enrolled in school. The Federal Parent Plus loan is available to parents if they are choosing to assist with some of that college cost while the student's attending school. And then there are alternative private loans available at banks, there's different private loan options available out there. You kind of just have to do your research if it's something that is going to be a good fit for you. If a student receives additional funding, alternative private loan or Parent Plus loan, that is always reduced first due to the higher interest loan. Okay, next. These are the types of federal aid programs that you could be eligible to receive when you file your FAFSA. The first one listed there is that Pell Grant, and the Pell Grant is awarded to a student. It is not dollars that need to be paid back. So as far as it's different from a loan. Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, oftentimes we call it the SEOG. It's an additional funding source from the federal government that students can be eligible to receive if they're in at least 6 credits, which is part-time. Sometimes we will see those loan dollars used if we have an out-district student, so their cost is a little bit higher, and we can provide that assistance to them if they're in at least 6 credits. The Teach Grant, that is another grant opportunity that the federal government provides. If your student is thinking about going into the field of teaching, this could be an opportunity to receive some dollars. To be eligible for the Teach Grant, you have to be going into the teaching field in a high-risk area, and they're very specific about where those high-risk areas are. They outline them, so if that is something you're interested in, looking into that a little bit further would be helpful. The work study is a federal aid program, so to be eligible for that. The student subsidized and unsubsidized loans are also through the federal government. Your Parent Plus loan is through the federal government, and then there is a Children of Iraq Afghanistan grant, which is also through the federal government. And that pertains to a child who had a parent that lost their life while they were serving in Iraq or Afghanistan. The state aid programs, Michigan Works can provide some educational assistance. Oftentimes it's for those occupational programs. And the Michigan Tuition Incentive Program, which we refer to as TIP, helpful program if you had a certain period of time, I believe it's 24 of the 36 months between when you were in 7th grade and high school, if you qualified for Medicaid, there could be some additional funding through the Michigan TIP. They have decided this year that they're not going to require students to certify. In previous years, if you were eligible to receive this funding, you had to certify yourself by, I believe it's August 31st of that year. And they have did away with that for right now due to COVID. So the Michigan Competitive Scholarship, that is one of those that is tied to that deadline date that we talked about for March 1st. So if you want to be considered for the competitive scholarship, you need to make sure your FAFSA is filed by March 1st. The Gear Up Scholarship, Gaining Early Awareness and Readiness for Undergraduate Programs, that's a state program. Michigan Fostering Futures, if you were in the foster care system, there is a program that may be able to assist you with some college costs. The Children of Veterans Tuition Grant and the Talent of Tomorrow Scholarship. So those all come from the state. Next. So with scholarships, high school counselors can be a good resource as far as reputable scholarships that you might want to apply for. Talking to your financial aid office at the institution that you will be interested in attending. A lot of times, Alyssa had mentioned there's pots of money there, and you just have to be willing to put in a little bit of time with an application. And a lot of times they are awarding most students with something, maybe not a huge amount, but I know at West Shore, we try to award most students that apply something. So check in with your school about that. Community foundations are a great resource for scholarships too. The Oceana, Mason, Lake, and Manistee, and they all have websites that you'll want to look at. Organizations that maybe you or a family member belong to. And there are free scholarship searches that you can do on the web. And we have a handout that we provide for students. So if you're looking for some of those that might be reputable or helpful for you, go ahead and give our office a call and we can share that informational website sheet with you. And then if you are thinking of attending West Shore, our 21-22 scholarships are going to open up in January of 2021. So that date's wrong there and there. Okay, next. So that is what I have. So now we're to the point where if there's any questions.
So I'm going to stop sharing. You're welcome to unmute yourself at this point if you have questions that you'd like to ask within the whole group. So we'll wait a couple minutes, or you're welcome to enter questions into the chat. There will be additional, much more in-depth further information shared about the FAFSA. Michael from Baker College will be taking us through some of the parts of the FAFSA tomorrow. So if you're still a little bit confused on the FAFSA or what that looks like, I would highly recommend joining that as well. There are also lots of resources. Your counselors, guidance counselors at your high schools have lots of resources. I know that ours in Oceana County use Google Classroom. So if you're a student or a parent in Oceana County, make sure you ask or look in your Google Classroom, ask your student. And there are a ton of resources that have been shared by the counselors and college advisors in Google Classroom as well. All of the Oceana high schools, and I believe many of the others in Mason and Manistee, will have paying for college assistance days during school. They were supposed to be this week. A lot of them are being pushed back due to some of the issues with so many students out quarantining or staff out quarantining. So some of those paying for college days at the school, watch for information in your email about those. There will be opportunities for your student to complete the FAFSA in class. So that means they will be working on that with counselors and they'll be working on their own computer and submitting or completing the FAFSA or scholarship applications. Sometimes they can get part of it done at that point in time. Does anyone have questions about the FAFSA process or overview?
Hi, it's Jody. I don't have a question, but I really want to share with families that if you're filling out the FAFSA at this point and it asks you the question about do you want work, or does your student want work study, or if you're the student, do you want work study? Check yes. It doesn't mean you have to work on campus. It just means that if you're eligible, that aid will be available to you. And sometimes even if you don't want to work, partway through the semester, you might decide that you do. So the only way to access work study is by checking yes on your FAFSA application. And if for some reason you don't the first year, you can go back in for your renewal and check yes at that point. But there's no going back once your award is done. You can't check yes partway through the semester. So just start out strong by checking yes on work study.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I would say the same goes for loans. When you're completing your FAFSA, if it asks questions about whether you want to accept, it's not going to ask you if you want to accept, but do you want to be offered subsidized, unsubsidized, or Parent Plus loans? You say yes at that point, and then later on is when you actually can go through and look at your financial aid award and see if you want to actually accept all that they're offering you. So when you're completing your FAFSA, you're not tying yourself to anything. You're just putting it out there so that you can be eligible.
Yes. And it's not tying parents to anything either. I think there are some parents that are concerned that because their information has to be included, that means it's signing them up for payment plans or student loans. And it's not necessarily the case, but it is factoring into what could be available for you, and then it's outlining what the cost is going to be. So not committing parents to taking out student loans, but maybe giving yourself or your parent the opportunity to have it if it's needed.
So if you have questions, go ahead and unmute yourself at this point and ask.
Alyssa, do you see the one in the chat?
I do. Yeah, the question is about a parent submitting their W-2. So when you submit the FAFSA, when your student submits the FAFSA, yes, they will be asking for the parent tax information from the year 2019. So you may be able to use the data retrieval tool right within the FAFSA where it will go and retrieve your taxes, and you don't have to enter all of that. But it depends on your situation whether you can use that tool on the FAFSA.
Yeah.
I'm not positive that answered your question, but yes, you will have to submit the parent tax information.
Yes, and especially if you're married filing jointly, if you're able to successfully do the IRS retrieval, the line that it gets from that tax return is adjusted gross income that's combined for two people. And so the following questions that it will ask you is, what is parent one's wages? What is parent two wages? And if your marital status has changed since you filed taxes, it will often request those W-2s because it wants to separate out the wages.
And so tomorrow, Michael will be going into much more depth. You may have questions regarding what do I do if my parents are divorced? Whose income do I use? He's going to be answering all of those types of questions. Or what if I have a legal guardian instead of my parents? What income do I have to use for that? There are a lot of different scenarios, and Michael will be going over quite a few of them tomorrow, specifically about the FAFSA.
And if your child is or is not planning on going to West Shore, either way, Mason can and Oceana can and Lunch Ministry, we have access to videos from all kinds of admissions offices across the state that share information about costs for students. And one of the things that they really stress is that that sticker price, which is all the tuition, room and board, everything all rolled into one, is not typical for any student. Most students will receive some form of aid, either through financial aid or through institutional scholarships. So I encourage you to visit your Oceana College Access Network or Manistee, Launch Manistee, or Mason Can to watch those videos if your student is interested in an institution apart from West Shore. And Kristi has very kindly offered to support families with students who are interested in West Shore. So thanks, guys, for all your work on that.
Yes, we're happy to.
All right, any other questions? Now's the time to unmute yourself or toss your question in the chat and we'll get that answered. At the end of the week, we will be sending out emails to all of you offering additional assistance. If you would like to meet one-on-one with someone, either in person or via Zoom to work on your FAFSA or scholarships, we will be connecting you either with a financial aid advisor from a local college, such as Kristi, or we'll be connecting you with your high school guidance counselor or college advisor to help you complete those tasks.